Lloyd's Garmadon, the elemental master of energy, elemental master of power, or maybe his true element is simply green? Actually, none of these are correct. Lloyd is officially the elemental master of life, but for many fans, this name doesn't make sense. It doesn't really explain what his element actually is or how it works. So in this video, we're going to find out what the element of life really means. Let's go back to the roots of Ninjago. Originally, there were only 4 elements of creation: fire, ice, lightning, and earth. These elements are simple because they already exist in the real world, so writers never had to explain what they actually are. But people notice that if we arrange the elements of creation as lightning, ice, fire, earth, their initials spell life. Coincidence? Maybe. But it also matches something Cole said in season 8. Cole described Lloyd's element as something like all 4 elements of creation combined into one. And there's evidence for that. Lloyd created fire in season 8. He used lightning in season 11. At first glance, this seems to support the creation theory. But there are still several problems. Lloyd has never used ice or earth. Even fire and lightning aren't convincing proof. It's possible he wasn't actually creating fire. He could have simply heated a torch with his energy, and even if Lloyd really could use all 4 elements of creation, why would combining fire, ice, lightning and earth suddenly produce a green element called life? That leaves us with an even bigger question. What does the element of life actually do? Does it literally create life? Apparently not. Throughout the series, Lloyd has never created cells, organs, plants, animals, or any living organism. Instead, he mostly uses his power offensively: energy blasts, energy spheres, protective barriers. So why is this called the element of life? I call this the pollinator theory. I'm going to start with main thing of previous Dragon Rising season. This main thing is souls. In Dragon Rising Season 3 Episode 10, we see that Lloyd's soul is green. Most souls in Ninjago are yellow. That suggests Lloyd's soul has an unusually strong connection to his element. And we already know that when Elemental Master dies, their element leaves their soul. Best example is Moral. So the bond between a soul and its element is already established in canon. In Season 3, Part 1, Moral stated that souls after the merge can move on. He doesn't know what this exactly means, but he assumed souls step into a new state of existence. Then, we're moving to Dragon Rising Season 4 Part 1. The Whispering Woods themselves seem to contain the element of life. When Lloyd, Aaron and Euphrasia were in danger, the trees shared their energy with them. This didn't just strengthen Lloyd, it also restored Euphrasia's elemental powers. At first, Lloyd, Aaron and Euphrasia were losing, because their elemental powers had become unstable. But just when defeat seemed inevitable, the trees suddenly began glowing with green energy. Moments later, Lloyd and Euphrasia regained the ability to use their powers. The exact same thing happened again in episode 4. Once again, the heroes were in danger, and once again, the surrounding plants shared their energy, stabilizing the ninja's elemental powers. But in episode 8, the ninja faced the elemental monsters again. This time, however, the trees did nothing. So what changed? The answer is simple: Lloyd wasn't there. I believe the element of life acted on its own. It sensed that its own elemental master was in danger. The surrounding plants instinctively shared their life energy, not only with Lloyd himself, but also with people fighting alongside him. Lloyd wasn't consciously controlling life energy inside plants. Instead, the element itself chose to help him. Something very similar happened after Lloyd unlocked his true potential. While fighting the empowered elemental monsters, Lloyd realized he couldn't defeat them alone, so he shared his power with Ninja. But one thing confused everyone: the elements of life did not strengthen every elemental master. It specifically empowered the OG5 ninja, allowing them to unlock their Draconis form. Why them? Because the element of life didn't make a random choice. It chose the people with strongest bond to Lloyd. Throughout the series, Lloyd has shared an extraordinary connection with original ninja. In Season 3, he gave them his golden power. In Season 5, their elements of creation temporarily left them to save Lloyd from Moro's possession. In Season 8, when Lloyd was close to death, the original ninja violently shared their own elemental powers with him. These bonds are far stronger than the ones Lloyd has with the newer generation of ninja. The element of life recognized those bonds. And this brings me to perhaps the strongest piece of evidence. The element of life is the only known element that doesn't choose its master through bloodline. Instead, it chooses its own successor. That suggests it possesses a level of awareness that no other element has ever demonstrated. But this still leaves one important question. Why does sharing the element of life make other elemental masters much stronger, or even allow them to unlock dragon form? We must go back to souls. I believe souls are actually a transformed version of life energy. In other words, life energy is the original form, while the soul is what that energy becomes inside intelligent beings. Throughout Ninjago, powerful transformation usually require either mental growth or a significant increase in elemental power. Lloyd unlocked his true potential by overcoming his inner struggles. I think when elemental master grows mentally, their soul becomes stronger. And because an element is connected to its master's soul, that stronger soul also amplifies the element itself. So, when Lloyd shares element of life with another elemental master, he is temporarily strengthening the very source from which their soul originates. That artificial boost allows their own element to reach a level powerful enough to unlock Draconis form. So, to sum everything up, I believe the Green Ninja's true purpose is very similar to that of pollinating insects. That's why I call it the pollinator fury. By wielding the element of life, the Green Ninja helps the Whispering Woods spread life energy throughout all 17 realms. Much like wind carries seeds or spores across great distances, the Green Ninja carries fragments of life wherever he goes. After that energy is released, it remains in a world, and the element of life itself decides where that spark of life should take root. The Green Ninja can choose how to use his powers, whether to attack, defend, or share it with others. But only the element of life decides what deserves to become truly alive. And finally, let's return to Spectral Lens. Morrow said that after the merge, spirits could finally move on. He believed it was some kind of afterlife, or perhaps the next stage of their existence. But what if that isn't the end? If my theory is correct, then a soul is simply life energy, transformed by an intelligent mind. And once that life comes to an end, that energy returns to its original form. It flows back into the Whispering Wood, becoming part of endless cycle of life once again. Maybe that was the true meaning of Lloyd's element all along.